Welcome to Careers in Discovery, your window into the world of biotech leaders. On each episode, we interview the industry's leading executives to understand how they built their careers, what they've learned along the way, and the advice they'd give to their younger selves. This week, I'm with Markus Gruell, Senior Vice President of Corporate Quality at Autolus, one of the UK's leading biotech companies and a real pioneer in CAR-T therapies. Markus and I went behind the scenes of Autolus's journey from a UCL spinout to a commercial stage biopharma company, looking specifically at how quality underpins every part of the drug development lifecycle. Markus shared with us what it means to lead quality in a fast-moving, high-growth biotech, and we also talked about his personal journey from pharmacist to QP, from the NHS to an executive position, guided by a passion for learning, a commitment to patient safety, and a real belief in empowering his team through empathy and integrity. This week, I am back with Markus Gruell of Autolus. Markus, welcome to Careers in Discovery.
Hi, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic to see you. So, Markus, a lot of people in biotech, especially in the UK, will be aware of Autolus and will be familiar with the company. But for those who might not be, can you tell us a bit about it, a bit about advanced autologous T-cell therapies and the work that you're doing there?
Thanks, Tom. And if I just may say, thanks for having me as one of the first, or maybe the first quality person on your podcast.
You might be, actually. We've had process development. I don't know if we've had an actual quality person.
I feel privileged already.
There you go. There you go.
Thank you. So a few words about Autolus. Autolus is a UK-based company in London. It spun out of the University College of London. Back in 2014, it was founded by our current Chief Scientific Officer, Martin Pule.
Yes.
He is also a lecturer at the UCL. And it went from obviously R&D, from clinical trial phase to now being being the first UK commercial CAR-T manufacturing company. We did receive the FDA approval last year in November.
Yes.
And we are waiting for further approvals by the MHRA and the EMA in Europe as well. So they are quite close now, imminent, I would say. And we are planning for launches in the UK and Europe as well with our first commercial product.
What an exciting time.
It is indeed. It is indeed. It was quite a ride. I joined the company back in 2019, in May, actually, 2019, so almost six years now. And when I joined, the company comprised about 150 to 200 people, and now we have over 700 employees. So it's been a massive growth over the past 6 years. And I've always been told in my career, it takes about 10 years to develop a product, and it's It was really like 10 years. Like the company was founded in 2014, and we did receive the first approval by the FDA in 2024. So
yes,
almost
interesting
on time.
So you will have seen, particularly sort of from the vantage point of quality, you will have seen a lot of the evolution of the company, especially in the later stages. And you referenced this already. So quality is an area I'm pretty familiar with because I spent the first 5 years of my career actually recruiting QA people into GMP and GCP facilities around Europe. So I spent a lot of time in quality. But, you know, as you say, we haven't had too many people who are focused on QA, QC, quality management on the podcast. So could you start by just giving us a bit of an overview of where quality fits into the development process and what it is for those who may not be familiar?
Sure. So quality is basically a corporate function. We have our fingers in all the pies, as we say. We built the quality organization in Autolus over the past 6 years, going from clinical trial, there are certain standards, obviously, we have to adhere to, certain guidelines, certain directives. We have the GMP part, which is focusing on the manufacturing part. how to manufacture a product, a batch, a patient batch. And there are many different aspects to GMP, which I will allude to later as well. We also have the GCP part, which is the good clinical practice, which is focusing on the trial phase, on clinical trials, of which we have a few in the pipeline as well and ongoing at the moment. And we have also like GDocP, good documentation practice, data integrity, computerized systems, vendor management. All of these things are part of quality, and they touch many functions in the business. We also work closely with legal, for example, because all the contracts that are signed between Autolus and the vendors and clinical sites, etc., they need to be quality reviewed. We have quality agreements in place. So there's lots of things to quality. If we just look at the big picture, we have quality assurance, which is basically encompassing everything. GMP, GCP. We have quality control, which is an independent function, independent of manufacturing. As the title says, they are there to test what we manufacture. Quality, in simple terms. And as I always say, and I think throughout the industry, the mantra is always quality is everybody's accountability and responsibility.
Of course,
everybody should have a quality-focused mind, which is a challenge sometimes, because as a company grows, as a company goes from R&D to clinical trials to commercial, there's an evolution to be made or to be had, and it's a constant challenge and incentive also to instill this mindset. In all people, in all employees.
Of course. And the ultimate goal, of course, is making sure that what patients are receiving is safe and is going to be what it's supposed to be and all that kind of thing.
Exactly. And as I said, we are now even more so as a commercial company, but even when we were a clinical trial phase company, we are heavily regulated by authorities. We had regular inspections by the MHRA in the UK. We had, obviously, last year was the big year for us in terms of inspections prior to approval. We had the FDA inspection from a GMP point of view. We had several GCP inspections by the FDA, by the EMA, which happen regularly, basically every 2 years. Almost, and they come and inspect us and see that we adhere to compliance. That we do things right, and we don't risk any patient safety, efficacy, and so on.
And it must be, especially given the types of therapies that you're developing, it must be a really interesting time in quality, because firstly, I mean, obviously there are other CAR-T therapies available, but it's still a relatively new field, and there are manufacturing challenges that beset the whole field, and kind of it's a new way of manufacturing therapies, right? But also, we're seeing a lot of digitization in terms of how clinical trials are run and how drugs are delivered to patients, and there's all this change that's enabled by technology. But I guess we've moved from a part of the industry where for a long time it was ICH standards that have been in place for a long time, mostly around small molecules and antibodies. It must be a fascinating time to be in quality and trying to navigate all of that.
I totally agree. And it is correct. Maybe I should quickly have a quick explanation of CAR-T therapies, maybe for people who might not know what it is. So basically what we do is we take patients' blood cells, T cells, and in simple terms, and we genetically modify them in our manufacturing site by introducing a CAR, which is chimeric antigen receptor, which is then obviously engrafted into the T cells of the patient, and those T cells, those transduced T cells, as they are called, they can then identify and attack specifically cancer cells in the patient's own body, own blood. And it's an autologous therapy, which means one batch we manufacture is for one patient only.
Yes.
So it's a cycle basically from the hospital site to us and back to the hospital, back to the patient where it gets administered and infused. We have a turnaround time of around 19-20 days.
Okay.
So it takes around 3 weeks to get this back to the patient. And we had, and not only we, I guess in the market there are already a few approved CAR T therapies, and we had phenomenal results.
Yes.
And obviously there is more to be done. There's more to be improved as the market grows. The longer those transduced CAR T cells last in the patient's body, the better it is.
Yes.
The more affinity there is, the longer lasting effects there are. So we are working obviously constantly on improving our manufacturing process.
Yeah. Yeah. And go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that autologous nature of it is perhaps the most interesting part, in that there's not one manufacturing process, right? It's kind of customized to each patient.
Yeah, correct. So we obviously try to standardize it as much as we can, but we are dependent on the material we get from the patient. So there's some variance there we cannot influence, and that's our challenge basically. Yeah.
Yes.
In terms of what you mentioned earlier about current developments, about this novel field, it's indeed an exciting time. It's also very interesting that there's a mutual education between manufacturers and authorities as well, because it's new. It's new for them as well.
Yes, of course.
So it's our chance also to educate them. What are the challenges, and they need to adjust. They need to meet us halfway in certain things as well. And you mentioned guidelines. You mentioned ICH. There are a few guidelines out there, but they are not always applicable, or 100% applicable to CAR T therapies. So, for example, in the EU, there's the ATMP guideline, which is helping us, but still there are some bits and pieces we cannot always apply, because, for example, when it comes to taking samples from each batch, sometimes it's not possible, because again we are dependent on the patient material. If we don't have enough cells in the end, we cannot take a sample that we should keep for 2 years or 5 years. So there are all these things that we need to assess and decide on the fly, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
And always have a risk-based approach in mind. Always have a pragmatic mindset. We want the best for the patient, but we don't want to risk anything that could impact patient safety and efficacy, etc.
No, that makes sense. So that's a really good overview of what quality is and where it fits, and particularly in this kind of company. As someone who's running a quality function, so you're the Senior Vice President of Corporate Quality there, how does your time get spent? What do you do with your days?
That's a good question. So the reason why I'm laughing a bit is because I've just been told a couple of times over the past few months, I'm still doing too much in the weeds, too much in the details, because obviously we are a growing company. We don't have everything in place like a Pfizer or a GSK has, which have been around for 30, 50 years. Of course. So we are currently still building the organization. As I would say, in my role, what I should be doing, what I'm supposed to be doing is look at the long-term strategy, look at any compliance risk across the company, corporate-wide. What I am still doing is I'm also one of the qualified persons in our company. For those of you listeners who may not know what it is, it's like an EU-specific role within quality, which is basically the person at the end of the line, of the manufacturing line, that is legally accountable for the quality of everything we manufacture, basically end-to-end supply chain, materials, testing, etc. And QPs are always told your head is on the block, basically. So
right.
if anything goes wrong, it's you who goes to court. It's
yes.
you who goes to prison even. It could be possible, but it hasn't happened yet. But so this is also what I'm doing on a daily, weekly basis. I am enjoying this a lot still. I like being there close to my team on the ground, certifying batches, assessing deviations, change controls, etc. Change management is a big part of quality as well. If you change anything in your GMP process, you need to justify it and risk assess it, etc. Obviously, I'm responsible for the budget of the quality organization, responsible for hiring. And as I said, we are currently in the process of making the organization fit for purpose for the future commercial challenges and also clinical trials, obviously.
Yes.
So, for example, we didn't have a clinical quality function up until 2023. Mm-hmm. So this has now been built to support the ongoing clinical trials, to conduct site visits. When I say sites, I mean hospital visits where we conduct those trials and so on and so forth. One of my key objectives is, and it's a personal aim of mine, to have quality integrated in as many processes as possible. Right. Like it's the integration. We are not supposed to be the police. Yes. Although quality is very often seen as the police, but we don't want a police state. Obviously, we want integration. We want collaboration between the functions. It benefits everyone. It benefits quality, that we understand the challenges, we understand the processes, and it also benefits operations, the GMP operators, that they understand where we are coming from when we have to open a deviation, when we have to open a change control, when we have to make this decisions based on risk and data. Yes. So they understand, and this is also a way of introducing the quality mindset, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting in that one of the observations I always had working with quality professionals was that there was always this distinction between kind of two kinds of quality professional, in that, you know, one was the police, as you talked about, the sort of, you can't do that, and you can't do that. The other was actually, I think, when you work within that level of constraint, because there are a huge amount of constraints with the regulations and things like that, it actually provides a lot of challenge from a creative point of view, right? In terms of not necessarily, no, we can't do this, but as a business, we need to do this. So actually, how can we do it compliantly? Can be a real intellectual challenge at times, right?
Absolutely, it's a balance act. Yeah, it's you want to get the product to the patient as soon as possible. You want to get the product out the door in a compliant way, but it's not always possible. So you have to find a way. So especially in our field, in the CAR-T field, or the ATMP field, as it's also called, the advanced therapy field, there is even if a batch doesn't meet the specifications, we can still ship the batch to the patient, but there's a lot of interaction required between us and the treating physicians in the hospital. They also need to assess it. Our medical affairs team need to assess it. Okay, this batch that hasn't met all the specifications, but is it still safe for the patient? So there are many gray areas we can explore. We need to explore. Yes. To treat the patients, because sadly this kind of therapy is currently third line therapy, which means all else has failed for this patient, and it's more often than not their last chance. Right. So we want to obviously save this patient's life. Yes. But it's a balancing act, absolutely, because the more, and especially now as a commercial company, we in quality, we shouldn't think about the business that much, about the revenue, etc., because obviously we are there to ensure patient safety. Yes. But obviously there is pressure. The more batches we can manufacture, the more batches we can administer, the more revenue is there for the company as well. But it's not in a quality mindset. It's obviously we need to focus on patient safety, and we need to justify sometimes to the business. Yes, we are aware there is an implication on the revenue side, but we cannot certify this batch because of X, Y, Z. So this is the intellectual and also integrity challenge you have as a quality professional.
And I would imagine, just going back to what you were saying about sort of the two-way education between yourselves and the authorities, given that situation, there's probably a little bit of grey that you operate in at times, right? And you have to navigate that too.
Absolutely, and the authorities are aware of that. At least the ones I came across so far.
Yeah, okay.
We have built a good rapport with the MHRA, obviously in the UK. They know us quite well. We had 5 inspections by the MHRA over the past 6 years. So they know our challenges, and those challenges are known across the industry.
Yes.
That, again, we are like a novel therapy in a novel field. Not everything is like manufacturing a batch of like 20,000 aspirin tablets. Obviously, this is established. All the materials have been proven to be fine for ages, for decades. But obviously, in our niche area, we have certain materials that are not yet across the market, not yet to the best GMP standard. Yes. So we need to work with what we can get from the market in terms of raw materials, etc. So but the authorities are, at least in my experience, aware of those challenges.
No, that's good. That's good. And I could talk about this all day, Markus, but I do want to talk about your path to this as well. And I was looking at your LinkedIn profile before this, and I was looking at your sort of career as it's represented on there. Obviously, that's one version of things, and it's a high level one.
It's not
no, exactly. And actually, I'm really interested to hear the story, because one of the things that struck me just looking at that was that you seem to have placed a lot of emphasis on learning and development and continued sort of taking on of new skills and new knowledge. And would love to hear the story of sort of going from, because you were a pharmacist originally.
Correct. I'm a pharmacist. Yeah, I'm still a registered.
You're still a pharmacist
in Germany and in the UK. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I never had a proper career path in my mind. So and I never knew when I was 16, yes, I want to be an SVP of quality
right.
when I'm 30 years older.
It would be a strange 16-year-old who said that, to be fair.
Indeed. I think I've always had quite an eclectic line of interests. Even when I was at school, I had obviously interest in science, but I was also interested in history and languages and philosophy, etc. So I've always had quite a broad mindset, I would say. When I did my A levels in Germany, we call them we don't call them A levels, but I did the A levels in Germany. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was interested in law. I was interested in medicine, pharmacy, even journalism, etc. Okay. But I like a challenge, and I think that's also one of the key points in my life. I like a challenge. I like to be challenged.
Yes.
And pharmacy was deemed, or is deemed, at least in Germany, one of the hardest studies at university. So I wanted to have this challenge. I wanted to see if I can do it. So I did that, and when I finished my studies in Munich after university, again, at that point, still I didn't have a proper career path in mind. I said to myself, I want to explore everything that pharmacy has to offer. So I went into a classic pharmacy role first, in a retail pharmacy. And funnily enough, my first role after uni was immediately like a management role. I had obviously zero experience in managing people. And I was like 24 when I finished university, which is quite common in Germany, by the way. Yes. I know in the UK and the US, you finish uni when you're 21 or so. But in Germany, it's, you start uni when you're 19, 20.
Yes.
Anyway. This was my first management role in a manufacturing facility of a retail pharmacy, and this was already like a deep dive into the world of how to deal with people, how to lead people or manage a team. And they were all like 20 years older than me at the time.
Right.
And I did this manufacturing role for a while. Then I went into, again, classic pharmacy management role in a retail pharmacy. And after 2 or 3 years, I realized this is not everything I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I was always interested in clinical pharmacy. I did an internship in the US for a month in Charlotte again, as you said earlier, I want to learn new things. I'm just curious. And this then triggered, I really would like to go abroad. I would like to live abroad. And that triggered then my move to the UK and to work for the NHS back in 2007 and 8. When I started out in the NHS, I did clinical pharmacy on the ward, oncology wards, neonatal wards, renal, etc. And that led to exposure to aseptic manufacturing.
Right.
And this hospital trust where I worked in Portsmouth, they also sponsored an MSc I wanted to do in Leeds at the time, which was on pharmaceutical technology and quality assurance.
Yes.
And that then, again, offered this world to me of quality assurance. One thing led to another. I went to, after the NHS in Portsmouth and in London, I then had an offer in Switzerland to work for a company there because I also wanted to explore industry.
Yeah.
So I did pharmacy, hospital, and then I wanted to explore industry. Yes. And this was in Bern, in Switzerland, between Bern and Basel. And it was for a CMO for Roche and Novartis, who are the big players in Switzerland.
Yes.
And and again, I did that for a while. I was a QA manager, a classic quality assurance manager in this company. And then I went to Berlin, back to Germany for a while, to work for Parexel, which is a clinical research organization. That opened up, again, a new world to me of IMPs, clinical trials.
Yes.
And that's the time when I became a QP as well. And that also opened up myself to auditing. I did many audits in that period of 3.5 years across the globe. Because if companies from, say, for example, Asia would like to conduct a clinical trial in the EU, they had to be audited by somebody, by a QP, to get their basically GMP compliance assessment or EU GMP compliance assessment. And so I explored Japan, Korea, the US, and so on for a while. And and again, I ended up in Autolus due to my connections in the QP world back in 2018 when I was at a QP conference. And they had this interesting role for me in an interesting company in a very interesting niche. So I was interested in, again, exploring new things, ATMP, CAR-T therapy, and that made me join Autolus.
Yeah, I see. And you said the company was, around about 100, 200 people when you joined?
At that time, yes. Yeah. When I joined, we were around 150 to 200 people,
Okay, and there would have been clinical trials running at various stages, but also quite a strong preclinical pipeline still. And so, I suppose... So, we work with a lot of companies that are at that preclinical stage and they don't really think about quality until they have to. And so I imagine coming in, there was a lot of things to sort of shape and nurture and install and all these kinds of things.
It was not easy, but it was also very interesting. And I have a fantastic team. I really love my team. And we can talk about this as well. And this is one of my proudest things, that I really kept the core of the team together over the past 6 years. They are fantastic individuals, and it's, as you can imagine, it's really tougher to work in quality in a startup company or R&D going to commercial than working I'm not saying it's harder, but it's obviously, again, in a company like GSK, the compliance culture is there.
Yes.
It has been established for decades. So when quality says something, it's probably less challenged there. And obviously, when you talk to scientists, they don't have quality experience. They don't have a quality exposure that much. So they challenge you on everything you say, which is also good for you as an individual, because you have to think on your feet. You have to know how to justify, how to explain your rationale, etc. But yeah, it's been a ride, to say the least.
Yeah, and I think scientists in these sorts of organizations, they are typically rewarded for being innovative, obviously, for trying things out, for moving quickly and making quick decisions. And I suppose when you're coming into an organization where there's been success with that approach, that then sort of, that will meet some resistance when you go, okay, yes, I know this is how you've always done things, but actually, if you want to actually ever treat a patient, then there's other things we've got to do. So I'm interested in that sort of, I'm always interested in these sort of cultural transitions and these changes that need to happen on this journey. So, I mean, any observations from the last 6 years of driving that change that you think have made it effective?
Good question. So obviously, as you said, the scientists in our company, I mean, we're all kind of scientists, but they are obviously really focusing on the R&D, on the research and development, and on the process development. We don't want to stifle their innovation at all. So you need to basically measure your quality impact based on the stage people working at. So if somebody's working in a lab to produce and create a new product, you don't want to stifle them. You don't want to really impact them too much. Leave them doing their creative, brilliant mind stuff. But obviously, as time goes on, as a product goes from the R&D lab to clinical trial to GMP, how can I say that? The rules and guidelines get more and more strict.
Right.
So you need to be mindful of who you talk to and how you get your points across. You can't tell the chief scientific officer you cannot do this or that in your lab. No, that's not on. But you can obviously have to educate, and you have to bring in also people into the organization who have been on this journey before, who also come from a commercial background. This is always helpful if you have people from, for example, from other CAR-T manufacturers who have gone to market. If you bring in people from those companies, they can also talk from their experience and support you in a way. So they know, yes, we have been inspected as a commercial company by the FDA. They are a lot tougher than somebody who is inspecting you in a clinical trial phase.
Right.
So it's always good to have allies to sing from the same hymn sheet. And there's no magic potion out there. It's always like you have to do, at least that's how we tried it in quality, have workshops, have training sessions. We have a great training team here in the company as well. And the training team and the quality team are really integral, and they are aligned.
Yes.
We need to find the right balance between instilling a compliance mindset, but also not being too rigid, being flexible. Speaking of, for example, SOPs, like standard operating procedures, which are obviously essential for any kind of GXP operation. Some SOPs who have been written 6, 7, 10 years ago, they are no longer applicable. Right. So you have to really continuously improve them and evolve them. It takes a huge effort, but it's worth the effort. It's you need to speak to all levels in the company constantly about why we do things the way we do it, or the way we should be doing them.
Yes.
It's never boring.
No, I'm sure. And I imagine drug development is such an expensive pursuit, right? And takes so long that you want to minimize unnecessary mistakes as much as possible. And I think you're never going to have a smooth path from conceiving of a target to delivering it commercially, but there's a lot of, I've spoken to a lot of people about this sort of long-term view of drug development from the very beginning, and sort of understanding how what you do in the very early stages of drug discovery can have an impact on how clinically viable a candidate is, or how easy it is to manufacture, or but also then there's the quality and the regulatory elements of it that you got to bear in mind. And I imagine there's then, especially at the stage you guys are at with your first commercial product and a further pipeline and things like that, there's then an element of, well, now we've been on that journey, what can we do differently to speed this process up, to make it slicker, to make it more effective? And that's a really fascinating project to drive, I think, because
Agreed.
The way you did it the first time probably wasn't the right way.
Exactly. That's a very good point you're raising, because we have just implemented like a lifecycle management group within the company now, just to look at the whole journey, also look at the future pipeline of trials. What can we improve? What have we learned from our first journey, from our first commercial product? And how can we close the loop between, again, R&D, commercial, in the most efficient way? I mean, right first time is a big topic anyway, in GXP anyway. But also in R&D, how can we speed up the process in the lab even? And that's where quality can help, quality can support when it comes to, for example, data integrity, data analysis, etc. So that's where we also in quality need to put ourselves forward and offer support. Again, we come with open arms. We don't want to restrict you too much, but we're just there to help you to get it right first time.
Yeah. And you, I would imagine in your quality organization, you have a huge amount of data points that perhaps other parts of the organization haven't picked up and haven't considered. And so even if you're not looking at it from a quality point of view, you can use your data that you've collected from a quality point of view to inform other things.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have a data analysis team, we have a data management team, and we have obviously long-term monitoring of our patients as well. All the data points we get back from the patients, all the data points we get from our manufacturing process, that can help also R&D in the future, because everybody can learn from the more data we generate, the more learnings we have.
Yes. Yeah. And I was interested, Markus, to try and distill this down a little bit. Now I'm asking you to summarize quite a long period of your life in a couple of paragraphs, but I apologize for that. No. But we talked about sort of learning being key to your career. We also talked about, or you mentioned that when you started out as a pharmacist, you were thrust into a management role and you didn't really know what you were doing, and now you're managing an organization within an organization filled with highly trained experts within a very complex organization doing difficult things. I imagine there's one or two things you've learned along the way that have been useful, but if you had to pick out, I guess, the 1, 2, 3 key career learns from your point of view, what are the things you think have been most influential?
I would say if I have to pick 3, and they change on a weekly, monthly basis.
That's allowed.
As a quality professional, I would always say integrity is really important, and integrity encompasses many things. Obviously, there's also, you have to be an upstanding person. You have to be able to defend your thinking, your rationale. Yeah. You have, and this is obviously then that leads to leading by example. So if your team sees that you are standing up for them as well, and this is one of my key messages to my team all the time, don't be afraid of making mistakes. I'm always there to back you up.
Yes.
We learn from mistakes. It's what you learn from mistakes that matters. It's not, don't be afraid. And obviously the more experienced you become as a person in your life, the more you are able to explore those gray areas. So this is one of the things: integrity, empathy. To me, is really key, and that also encompasses being authentic.
Yes.
If you're not authentic, like, nobody believes you anything, to be honest, and people can see through this quite quickly, to be honest.
Yes.
I think what I hopefully have conveyed to my team, that I really care about them, I really care for them, I want the best for them. Obviously, sometimes you have to make decisions, this person will not be happy if I make this decision, but I'm doing it for the greater good of the team. But as long as you can explain it in an empathetic way, and help them understand why you had to make this call, that always helps them as well. And they appreciate that.
Yes.
They don't want you to be like, I'm always open. I'm trying to be as open and transparent as possible. There's nothing nefarious going on. I would like them to know that I always have their backs, and I really care about them, not only at work. Obviously, that's my main role, but I also care about their private lives. So I hope I'm trying to do this as best as I can. Offer them, if you need anything, please let me know. I want to encourage them as well to run with projects, to run with tasks and activities. But if you need any support, let me know. I'm not a micromanager.
Yeah.
I'm there for you. I'm behind you. Let me know if I can help you. And they can always come to me. I hope they know that. So we have empathy, integrity. The last thing I would say, as I mentioned before, to be curious.
Yes.
Curiosity, and be humble as well. Don't be afraid of a room that is full of people smarter than you. It's a great opportunity for you to learn.
Yeah.
I'm working with fantastic people in this company that are way smarter than me, but I don't have the ego that I say I need to be right because I need to show what I'm capable of. I want to learn from them. I want them to feel appreciated when they tell me something I don't know. And this is what I think I'm trying to instill in my team as well. Make everyone feel listened and heard.
Yes.
Again, obviously, at the end of the line, I have to make a decision sometimes that is not pleasing everybody, but I want everybody's opinion to be heard, because the group is always smarter than one individual. So those are, I would say, currently my three key points.
I think they're good ones. I think the last point around never worrying about being in a room with people smarter than you. I think, no matter how smart people are, accomplished, successful, senior in the organization, whatever, I've always been amazed sort of how, almost without exception, if you show genuine interest in them and what they care about, and that you want to learn from them, then even the most sort of high profile people are usually really willing to teach a little bit and give you a bit of their knowledge and give you a bit of their insight.
Yeah, totally agree with you. It's a privilege to learn from people that have accomplished things, that know their area well. I had quite a rough upbringing, so I don't come from an academic background. My family and my ancestry, so I'm still taking every day as a great opportunity and privilege to be in this role, to be in this position, to be able to work with my fantastic team and this company is, it's just a gift, to be honest. I'm just grateful.
I was going to say, if you want to be curious and learn from smart people, then you're probably in the right place, Mark.
Exactly.
Exactly. No, that's fantastic. So obviously a really exciting time at Autolus. You're looking at launching products. You're looking at further approvals. From a quality point of view, what are you excited about going forward?
I'm excited about building the quality organization, to improve the quality organization, make it fit for purpose, get it more and more integrated into all the processes on all levels in the organization, and to ensure compliance, because that's at the end of the day, and ensure compliance and patient safety. So
yes.
Patient comes first. Patient safety is always at the top of the rank. Then compliance, so we can maintain our licenses, we can keep supplying patients, and also develop people and help them in their career and their own roles to become their best versions, the best versions of themselves, basically.
Yes. So plenty to be going on with.
Yes, plenty to do. Indeed.
No, it's great. Well, Markus, thank you so much. It's been a bit of a trip down memory lane for me because I haven't spoken to anyone about quality for a while, but really good to hear your story, and thank you for sharing.
Thanks again so much for having me. It was a pleasure. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please like and subscribe and share it with someone else you think will benefit. And for more podcasts, videos, blogs and insights, come follow me, Tom Froggatt, on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Medium or TikTok. See you next time.